All right, Cole, you are set to go. You're broadcasting now.
Terrific. All right. Good evening and welcome to the April 21st meeting of the Goffstown Budget Committee. We're going to start this off with a roll call. What I'll do is I'll read down the sheet here. And if you are present, please say that you're here. Does that sound right, Derek?
Yes, and I would just ask members, if you're not speaking, if you could just keep your mic muted. That'll make the end quality much better. And thank you.
Great. So going down the list here, Schuler Mark Sund.
Skylar Mark Sund.
Skylar, sorry.
Hi, Cole. How are you doing?
Hi, doing good.
Good. I've met you before.
Yeah.
Oh, and I would just, Cole, I would just ask that when people identify themselves, again, the primary way for this to go out over public is through the telephone. So if you could just identify yourself and if there is anyone else in the room with you, thank you.
All right. Bill Cordes.
Here.
Greg Flegel.
Here.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Joe Alexander.
Here.
Eileen McNinney.
I think she's
Eileen?
mute.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I saw Eileen down there.
Go ahead, Eileen. We're not getting any audio from you, Eileen. You might have to call in. Do you have a microphone input, or if you call in, you'll be okay. We'll get her to call in.
All right. Moving on. Jeff O'Brien.
Jeff O'Brien's here.
Fred Plett.
Here.
Dennis Lynch. Not here. Cole Reel is here. Spencer Diaz is absent this evening. Richard Manzo.
Here.
Thanks, Richard. Selectman LeMay.
Here. I'm the only one in the room.
Thank you. Richard Fletcher. No.
Oh, I've got Eileen checking in by telephone. Eileen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. And Jared Talbot.
Present.
All right. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from January 14th. We have the public hearing and after public hearing meeting. So I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Paul, I'll move to approve the public hearing minutes.
All right. And that was Richard Manzo making the motion. Is there a second?
This is Eileen, and I'll second that.
Great. And a second from Eileen. Richard, was your motion for both sets of minutes?
No, I just did the public hearing. I thought they had to be separate.
So we'll do the public hearing, then we'll do the other one. All right. And Derek, my understanding is we have to do a roll call for this as well.
Yes, any votes done by remote meeting have to be by roll call.
Great. And just for some of our newer members, if you were not on the committee at that time, you would just abstain from voting on this matter. So Skylar Sund. Abstain. Bill Cordes.
Yes.
Greg.
I thought I was not voting. Maybe I misunderstood you, but I will
No,
vote.
you just abstain. I'm down the roll, as presented. Joe,
Yes.
Eileen,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Fred,
Abstain?
abstain. Dennis Lynch is here. I vote in favor. Spencer's here. Richard,
Yes.
Selectman Lemay,
Abstain.
Richard Fletcher, not here. Jared Talbot,
Yes.
great. Thank you all.
Cole,
Change-
if I could change mine to abstain, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the instructions
No,
there.
yep, that's why I had it down as Greg. Thank you. And then we also have the after public hearing meeting. I'll entertain a motion on those.
Yeah, Cole, I'll move to approve the post-public hearing meeting minutes.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that. This is Jeff O'Brien.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. Moving down the roll. Or is there any discussion? All good. All right. I'll move to call the roll. Skylar,
Abstain?
thank you. Bill Cordis,
Yes.
Greg,
Abstain?
thank you. Joe,
Yes.
Eileen,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Fred.
Abstain?
That's not here. I vote in favor. Richard,
Yes.
Selectman Lemay,
Abstain.
here, and Jared Talbot.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the election of a chairman. The floor is open for nominations.
Cole, this is Jeff. Did we skip over the introduction of newly elected members?
Yes, we did. Thank you, Jeff. So going through here, we have four new members. So would love to give them a quick chance to introduce themselves. Skylar,
I was on the, I was a newly elected member. I was on the Library Board of Trust. I was a trustee last year for the entire year of starting in 18 and then ending in 19. And I've lived in Goffstown for about 5 years. Spent a lot of time in Manchester. Lived overseas in a country called Iran. Traveled extensively, college, and then law school, and I worked for a Wall Street firm. And so I've got extensive knowledge of budgeting and the process there and the financial part. So I'm very eager to join the budget committee and help Goffstown with all the functions that go with it. So thank you very much.
terrific. Thank you, and thank you for joining the committee. Greg,
Thank you, Cole. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Cole. I've lived in town since 1991. My wife Kathy's a paraprofessional at Glen Lake School. She's been there since the first year it opened, as were two of my daughters. I've had three daughters go through the Goffstown school system. It's been absolutely fantastic. We love the town. They've been involved in a lot of their activities over the years, but now they're college age, so I'm trying something a little bit new here. Scott suggested I run for office, so I'm excited about it. I don't have much experience with municipal budgeting, but I think I can be a quick learner, and I certainly will do my best. And professionally, I run the office for Edward Jones Investments here in town, 24 Main Street, next to the town hall. So I'm happy to be here.
Terrific. Great to hear. And then Fred, you're new to this committee, but you're far from new to town activities.
Thank you. Yes. I moved to Goffstown, I think it was 1974. What's that? Almost 50 years. And I've been active in almost any committee there is in town. I've been assistant moderator for several years, town and school. I started running for state rep and budget committee and stuff like that, where I couldn't serve in that role. I've been on the budget committee in the past, but I look back, it was 1995 to 97. So what's that, 25 years?
Yep.
And I was assistant chair, and I haven't served on the town level for quite a while because I had sales jobs taking me out of town. I was unemployed, and then I had a 10-year gig with the Attorney General of Massachusetts. It was tough to do that and do town stuff. I've also been active in Lions through multiple council chair. So all up the ranks of Lions. I'm now a state rep, so I've been very active one way or another. I'm happy to get back into town affairs.
Terrific. All right. That concludes our new members. I had said 4 earlier, but Bill Cordes is reelected. He was here last year. All right. So moving on with the agenda, we have an election of the chairman, and nominations are open.
Cole, we have Richard Fletcher just joined the meeting. Telephone.
Oh, great.
Richard, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. Great to have you, Richard.
Does anyone want to be nominated?
Hello?
Hi, Richard. We can hear you right now. The Budget Committee is doing nominations or election of the chairman for the 2021 budget cycle.
I will nominate Cole Real.
Great.
I'll second that
I believe
nomination.
Great. So I believe that nomination was from Fred and a second from Skylar. For myself, if I heard that correctly.
That's right.
All right. Are there any other nominations? All right. We'll move to a roll call. Skylar?
Yes. On the nomination or the renomination of Cole Real. Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Bill?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Joe?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Eileen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Dennis isn't here. I vote yes. Spencer is not here. Richard?
Yes.
Selectman Lemay?
Yes for Cole.
Richard Fletcher?
Yes.
And Jared Talbot?
School board abstains.
Great. Thank you. So I thank the committee for the appointment there. And then Jeff, you have been the vice chair. Would you like to continue in that role?
Yes, I will continue. Thank you.
Great. So I select Jeff as my vice chair. Moving on here, the rules of order for the committee were sent out.
Do you need to elect Jeff?
The vice chairman, as far as I've ever been on the committee, is a selection from the chairman.
Thank you.
So the rules of order that the committee has operated under previously were sent out. Was there any discussion there from folks?
I would like to rewrite the thing only for grammar. It's poorly written. The substance is okay.
Noted.
And I would endeavor to do that for next year, maybe. But
All right.
this year, they're fine.
I'll make a note and hold you to that. All right. My understanding, Derek, if I'm not mistaken, we have to vote to adopt those rules of order.
I believe the Budget Committee, as a matter of course, every year has readopted those. So if you want to take a motion to readopt those, I would say that has been the standard practice that you have followed.
Great. I think that makes sense. So is there a motion to adopt the rules of order as presented?
Motion? Fred Platt?
Great. Motion from Fred. Is there a second?
Second by Jeff O'Brien.
Second from Jeff. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll move down. Skylar? Skylar?
Is he on mute?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Bill?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Yes, approved.
Greg, sorry, I heard Fred.
Yep, that's great. Joe?
Yes.
Eileen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Here, I vote in favor. Richard? Manzo?
Yes.
Selectman Lemay?
Yes.
Richard Fletcher?
Yes.
And Jared Talbot?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. There were two more documents that were sent out, RSA 32, which relates to budget committees and our duties and orders and how we operate. So that information is there for folks. And also RSA 91 A:3, which relates to right of no requests. Were there any questions on that from folks? Joe? Did I hear someone there? All right. If you have any questions on that in the future, feel free to reach out and we'll get you any answers as we move along here as a committee. Next on our sheet, on our agenda rather, we have an SAU update. Obviously, with the situation going on, there's been a lot of moving parts on the school side and town side. And I hope that tonight the committee can get a good idea of some of the things that have been going on and how that affects the work that we have been or that we will be doing throughout this session. So I think Scott was on. If Scott or Jared wanted to go over some of the things that have been happening on the school side, that would be great.
Hi, Cole. It's Scott. I want to thank you first for the opportunity to speak to the Budget Committee. I know we had a lot of discussions during the budget preparation period, and I have Jared is on the line as well, and he can help fill in some of the blanks, but I wanted to just provide the Budget Committee a little bit of an overview as to kind of what's been going on since the response to COVID-19 and with schools now being closed in terms of now everything is remote learning for the end of the school year. I have, just so the budget committee knows, I spoke with Cole 2 or 3 times to kind of clue him in as to some of the things that were going on. And then about I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sent an email to Cole and to Jeff to try to just keep the budget committee as informed as possible. That's when Cole said, hey, can you come on to our next meeting and give an update? So what I'd like to do, Cole, if I may, and Derek, I'm just going to share my desktop, and I think I can see where I can do that. So is that all right if I do that, Derek?
Yeah, go ahead. I might have to give you presenter rights. Hold on a second.
I'm going to see if it says share content. So
Yeah, so you should be able to.
okay. And I'm going to share screen 1. So let me know when you can see it. So this is our expenditure status report.
You can see it.
You
I can see it, Scott.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go to the bottom and start from the bottom. So as of right now, we've got about $1.45 million of available balance in the budget. As you can see, we're about 96.6% of the budget has been accounted for. That includes encumbrances as well as all of our expenses to date. And I'll send this to you electronically. And I think we sent you the one for March. This is the most current one. But what I want to, as I go through some of these, and I'll start from the top, you'll see, for the most part, in terms of the spending, we should be at probably around 90% in some categories. But the reality of it is that monies have been transferred all around. Jared, and our school board, we've approved a ton of budget transfers. I'm going to cover what some of those budget transfers were. But most notable, what you're going to see, here is we have very few negative balances. There's one that's pretty substantial, and that's in the area of special ed. And that's really, one, we had a shortfall in terms of our budgeting for special ed. But secondly, we also, New Boston is included in this, and then they pay back Goffstown about to the tune of about $150,000, $150,000. So this account right now is showing a negative of $250,000. The reality of it is it's about 125,000 negative, and that's going to come down because we're negotiating a rate with the transportation companies, and I'll cover that in a little bit. So overall, our budget's in fairly good shape, despite all the additional purchases. And I'm going to send this report out to you. We do that on a monthly basis. So for the new members like Skylar and Fred and Greg, we will send you this expenditure status report on a monthly basis, so you know where the money is kind of going. I'm going to show you a spreadsheet right now, and this spreadsheet here is all of the expenses so far that we have committed towards COVID-19. And this is really what I illustrated when I've been talking with Cole and in my email to Cole and Jeff. This is what we've had to kind of contend with. You'll see that some I don't have a cost in for, because in this particular one, we had to increase our telephone capacity on our trunks. And I didn't have that price. I think it was around $8,000, but it's around 8 to 10. We purchased about 225 Chromebooks as we went on remote learning. So we are not a one-to-one school in terms of we don't provide Chromebooks to our students. There are school districts in New Hampshire that literally provide a Chromebook for each and every student in the district. We're not one of them. So although the vast majority of our students, and I would say probably upwards of 90%, have a computer at home or a laptop that they could use, we had a fair amount of students in both Goffstown and New Boston that did not have access to a laptop or technology, and the district did provide that. So initially, we did use a lot of our older equipment. We had some laptops that were donated from, I believe it was the state of New Hampshire that we got a hold of. This was before the COVID pandemic. but that we had to purchase over 200 Chromebooks to satisfy the need. There's a couple of things that you should be aware of that impact what some of the work that you did. So last year when we did our budget process, you'll recall that we had an CIP, a server virtualization project, and unfortunately our servers, they needed replacement. That's why we were doing the server virtualization project. That said, when we went on remote learning, a lot of our servers, they crashed, and we were able to piece them together, but we had to expedite the server virtualization project and do that now, and that's what we did to try to get, just before, we have something like almost 4,000 users on our system now because of all the students that are doing remote learning, and our servers didn't have that capacity. About 2 to 3 weeks into it, our backup servers, half of them went into failure status, and that was server virtualization phase 2. And Steve has been in the process of doing that as well. So I wanted to let you know that that work has kind of been done. We had to purchase a great many licenses with Google for things like Google Classroom and the use of the Chromebooks. And again, you'll see here, server virtualization phase 1 equipment was almost 57,000, and then phase 2, the backup servers, was nearly 46,000. The rest of it is Chromebooks. Seesaw Learning, we had to purchase. There's Google Classroom is very good for middle school and high school students, but Seesaw is an electronic, is a platform that's used more for elementary and kindergarten students. So we did purchase that license as well. Some of the other things that we had to go with was in terms of, you'll see here, soft phone implementation. So as we're communicating with students and their families, soft phones allow us to use the laptops as a telephone, and we're in the process of implementing that. The issues that we have now is that we cellular phones are in parts of our communities don't work all that well. Students and families weren't recognizing the cell phone when a teacher or a para or another special educator from outside the district was trying to communicate with them. So this will be very helpful for us in terms of communicating with our families and students into the future. It's a one-time license, so we'll be able to use laptops as a telephone for 5-10 years. It's something, and I'm sure, Jeff, you're in IT, you're probably familiar with this technology. Prior to me working for the SAU, I worked at State Farm, and we used our telephones were based through our laptops. So it's very helpful in trying to be nimble and work remotely. Last you'll see is a PandaDoc, and I'm sure that's a $4,000 expense. I'm sure many of you are familiar with DocuSign. There's a lot of signatures that are required to do our work, whether it be in the SAU or in our schools. So signatures are required for all of these individual education plans, IEPs, as well as all the different contracts that we have to do, teacher contracts, contracts for any type of construction that we're doing in terms of the Glen Lake project. So this is going to allow us to do everything electronically, and it's, again, licenses to do that. So right now, we also purchased sanitizing machines. A couple of them are on back order. So what this does is it's a backpack device where we can go in and in about 5 to 7 minutes, we can spray mist a classroom. It attaches to all the hard surfaces, and we're able to sanitize the classrooms with that. And we have one of them which we've used. The other 2 are coming in shortly. A select board person, I always get confused. So Selectman LeMay.
Yes, sir.
So I will share with you that I have had conversations with police and fire and DPW. We are going to be using this machine for the town as well, in terms of helping them sanitize their police cruisers, ambulances. And I know I've had a conversation with Adam Jacobs and Mike Hillhouse in terms of getting into a routine. They in terms of using this type of equipment. So for those of you on the budget committee, I talk to Derek and Danielle pretty much on a weekly basis. I've also speak to the police and fire chiefs and DPW. The partnership has never been stronger in terms of the relationship between the town and the school. We're sharing as best we can. And I just want to thank Derek and Danielle and the select board for their continued support. I feel a lot better knowing that we are a true team and dealing with this. And I speak on behalf of the administration, the school board, that we're very, very thankful for that relationship, and we got to keep it going. Any questions on these expenses?
Yes.
Yep.
Fred Platt here. What is the significance of the red 45, 7, 2890 under server virtualization? And
It hasn't. We didn't. That one, I colored it because we haven't. I'm sorry. We haven't. We've placed the order. We haven't gotten that set up yet. Same thing. We haven't gotten all the sanitizing machines yet. We've gotten only one out of the 3, and the server virtualization phase 2 has not yet been implemented.
So that's a guesstimate, then, is it?
No, it's the price is there, but what you'll see is, as this is something that my assistant BA Laura put together, and I just wanted to give you kind of the most current amount of this. We're at $250,000 for, I would consider, our hard costs, extra costs. Not included in this amount of money is a very, very significant chunk, and that has to do with our food service program. So right now, it's going to be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of the low end $200,000, the high end $250,000 to assist our food service program. They're not bringing in revenue. So the food service program, look at it as like a traditional business where they have costs in terms of their labor, their benefits, the cost of the product, et cetera. And then the revenues are the student meals. So when they pay for their meals, they're getting those revenues in. But without school being in session, we're not seeing any of those revenues coming in for the better part of March, April, May, and June. So it's pretty much about 30% or so of what they would typically take in. As we continue, we're continuing to pay our food service workers for their wages and their benefits. Right now, we had initially planned on delivering meals and providing meals to students right from the get-go. But unfortunately, we had, as most of the people know in the community, we had a COVID case very early on in our school system, and then that prevented that from happening. We started this week with the giving meals to our students, and I believe we were somewhere around 150 to 175 meals that were provided to students yesterday. We're doing that on Mondays and Wednesdays, and that's by order. When I say order, it's a pre-order. They call it in or they use an app to order the meals, and we're providing breakfast and lunch to students that need it. And that's regardless of whether they're on free and reduced lunch. So as part of the CARES Act, there were waivers for USDA, and we're allowed to provide meals to any student age 18 or under that needs it. And again, that'll be 5 days a week. I would be totally remiss if I did not thank, I mean a big, huge thank you to the Goffstown Network, the food pantry in Goffstown. They have gone above and beyond what we could have ever expected. Initially, we only had 15 or so families that had what we would call food insecurity needs. And the network stepped in immediately and assisted those families. But over the course of the last couple of weeks, as that need has escalated, we found it important for us to, as a school district, to fill another void, and that's why we're doing the meals right now. I anticipate that that number is going to grow as the weeks go by. So I wanted to at least share with you that we're probably going to see somewhere to the tune of upwards of $500,000 in this COVID-related expenses. Now, on the flip side of that, we're seeing a lot of costs that we are not incurring. So some of the obvious ones, teacher substitutes, because we're not in school, we haven't had a need for substitute teachers, and we're seeing a considerable savings there. And off the top of my head, I think it's somewhere around $125,000 savings in that line alone, 100 to 125. We are also, due to the fact that school is closed for the remainder of the school year, all spring sports have been canceled. So with that, you have the coaches' stipends. That is those encumbrances will be liquidated. All of the transportation, which is about $35,000 to $40,000 for co-curriculars, that will also be available to help offset this amount, et cetera. So there are some things that we have done. The
Heat
big
and
message.
lights?
I'm sorry.
Heat and lights?
Yes. So we put our heating system down to what's called vacancy type mode, Fred, which I believe sets it at like 62 to 63 degrees. So we'll see. Now we were pretty much past the prime heating season. So right now, we should see a savings in our propane and in our electricity. So we are going to realize savings there. And Fred, you're the electricity guy, so you know that we will see some savings there as well.
Hey, Scott, this is Jeff. So with these, additional incurred expenses, plus with, expenses, why having the school shut down saved, are you projecting having any budget issues, because this is a bottom line budget? Do you think you're going to be, breaking even, or where do you kind of see things going from
It's funny, like you teed this up for me. I did not set this up, Jeff. So that's a great point. I think that we're going to be neutral. And here's why we're going to be neutral, and here's where it really is going to impact you folks when we review the budgets next fall. All right. I pretty much put a freeze on all purchase orders for things like supplies and books, etc. So we have something like $120,000 of supplies frozen. Books, 60 to 80,000. I froze it. So what we're doing right now is we reallocated monies for things like paper and purchasing of books and other things, and that all got frozen, and we kind of put it towards the technology piece. So the short answer, Jeff, is that right now, I think we're going to be in fairly good shape in terms of the frozen parts of the budget, along with the savings and other parts. We're going to do a lot of shifting around to make it neutral. So right now, I'm projecting that whatever I told you, I predicted or I budgeted for an unassigned fund balance of, I think it was around $1.4 million. I think we're going to hit that target. We might do better than that, but I feel pretty good about at least hitting that target. I know I've got Cole and Joe on the line, and Fred. They are also our state reps, and we are getting. I've spoken with Joe a couple of times, and the state of New Hampshire is getting about $37 or $38 million to local school districts to help with the extra expenses. Right now, I think we're going to be in the range. We don't know the final numbers, and I know that Joe has been kind of pressing to see what we would get. I think it's going to be somewhere around 225 to 250,000 for Goffstown, and I'm not sure when we're going to get it. The mechanism, I'm hoping that it's a grant that is, how do I say it, non-lapsing, so that if we need to, we could, spend into the summer with it. So that's the desire there. So if that's the case, I think we're going to be in fairly decent shape, provided that we don't have any more massive, hiccups. And I think the big thing was the server and the Chromebooks. I mean, our infrastructure just wasn't great. And we knew we needed to replace it. It expedited it, but I think we're going to be okay, Jeff, and the rest of the committee. The caveat, though, I want to say is that when you look at these budgets in October, November, and December, if you're going to look at historical spending in like supply lines, it's because we move the monies around. It's going to be really difficult to. I mean, on my end, I think we're going to have to look at, the prior year, et cetera, because I am pretty much robbing all of those supply lines.
Is that what you
move the money
present,
around.
the actual numbers, but we look 2 or 3 years in the past to try to.
Yeah. And I have,
Check
when
the
we do it, Fred, I give you 3 years of actuals. I
Yeah.
guess what I'm asking is that please pay a bit more credence, weight on years 2 and 3, not the last one, because there's a lot of money, a lot of funds are going to be underspent in certain supply lines, book lines, and then you're going to see massive overspends in technology.
I will give Cole a plug. He's the one on the education committee, so he may know more than the rest of the other two here with respect to the numbers. We'll get to it eventually as well, but I'm science, technology, and energy. That's not on my forte right now.
All right.
Yeah.
So the other, I guess I wanted to also give you an update on the Glen Lake project as well. But before we go there, I wanted to see if there's any other questions with respect to this or anything in general with expenses for either myself or for Jared. We're good, I guess. All right. So I'm going to share with you. I took some. I didn't take them. Randy Loring, our facilities director, took some photographs of the Glen Lake construction project. So one of the things that the school board wanted to do is, with school being closed, this was a great opportunity to get a head start on that project, especially the excavation work. And you'll see, I took some. We got some photos here to show you. So in case you didn't know, we started construction. If you haven't driven by, and I'll start to go in the first photo. These were taken last week. And this is the area to the left of the building where there was a pretty big hill. And John Neville Excavating, he is a Goffstown, New Boston business. And he was the contractor that was hired. And for the most, all of that hill is gone, and they're ready to start to excavate for footings and for concrete. So just a ton of work has happened over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
I would say several tons.
Yeah, like 5,000 yards of stuff. A couple of things that I wanted to clarify. Pretty much early on, John Neville contacted us about putting the fill. If you recall, a lot of this material is intended to go to Mountain View Middle School for a future road widening project. Those folks who've gone to Mountain View recognize that there's a traffic jam with all the cars, and it's been on CIP to widen that road. This fill was supposed to go to Mountain View Middle School, and John Neville, it's part of our kind of our cost containment. He said, you know what, I think you'd be better off bringing it over to your property that's behind the high school on Norman Road. And so that's kind of what we did. And it was kind of a last week of the project, not last week of the project, but as we were doing bids and bid openings, he had recommended that he would have had to take down a lot of the guardrail. There was really, if we did not, because we expedited this type of work, we didn't get a chance to notify abutters in terms of at the middle school. So we just felt it was better just to stockpile it at the Norman Road site. And that's what we did. As I go down, this is the back of Glen Lake School. And you can see the slope over here has been graded out. This was from 2 weeks ago, and they're going to be putting in parking along here where these cones are, diagonal parking. And this is another view of that same thing. So where are you seeing where it's all kind of starting to be graded out? This is where they'll be parking. And then Neville took down the slope and made it pretty nice. So this was from this week. And as you can see, the same area, they've hydro-seeded it. And they've started to put down some drainage and water pipe. And they're just doing a lot. They're doing a lot. This is the front of the school, and again, they've they've dug up to put in water and sewer. They've started to dig up the front of the school where the walkway is. So a considerable amount of work has been started. We put the down payment down on the modular classroom last week, and we're hoping and we're keeping our fingers crossed that the construction of the modular classroom will be as scheduled. You know, one of the things that we don't have control over is, will that plant shut down due to COVID-19? We don't know. But in terms of the prep work, John Neville Excavating and On Point Concrete, which is also a local contractor, it's for I think Lee Sperry was on this budget committee. He has been awarded the concrete work. So it's good that the project, we have 2 local companies that are doing the work. We're going to be ready for the modular. We just have to keep our fingers crossed that they don't run into any snafus. And I think we got one more picture of the hydro seeding. This is out back. So it's a lot of work that's being, a lot of work being done. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that was, for the most part, the overview that I wanted to give you from a school district perspective. It's been, I want to also share with you that a lot of times when we talk about the finances, and again, that's what I focus on, that's what Danielle focuses on the town side, and Derek. But it's also, how does that translate into the services that we provide? If you get a chance to watch the Goffstown School Board meeting of last night, and I think Adam McCune, I think we're going to try to do it on a GTV show, but the administrators, they spent about 30 minutes talking about what remote learning looks like. And man, I don't think I could have been prouder of my peers on the education side of the school district for pretty much putting together something in 4 days. And they worked their tails off to make that happen. There's a lot of Zoom meetings and Google Classrooms, and I really think it's going to change the landscape of education going forward. I really do. There's a lot of innovation going on, a lot of creativity, and just, I know that we still got some bumps in the road, and there's things, some of the things are not working, but I think those are fixable, and I think our teachers and our administrators are just doing a really bang-up job in terms of delivering education despite the circumstances that we're in. So. Thank you for your continued support. I also want to, if any of you have any questions, and this is for folks like Greg and Skylar and Fred, and as anybody, give me a call, and I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have regarding the school budget. I've spoken to most of you individually about various questions here and there. I would say last year I would say, oh, come on in and we'll talk and we'll sit through it, but I can't do that now. So if you want, I'll do a Zoom call with you. I'll show you whatever you want to see. The books
You
are
might
pretty
send
much.
out your school information. I have your personal information. So I can call you at school.
Fred, you can call me on my personal if you want to. So
But
we have that special bond, Fred.
You got the message.
Yeah, I do. So whatever, I'm here for you. I would rather, you know, again, it's for the most part, unless it's something that's a non-public or a private student matter, the books are completely open. It's the public's money, and you know, whatever you want, I'll be more than happy to explain it.
Scott, appreciate that.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Scott, for that. As Scott stated, if you have further questions, you can contact him or Jared to get some answers. But I think that was good. I've seen a lot of chit chat online about folks wondering, well, if this is shutting down, are we going to save a lot of money? So I think you put it all out there, and I really appreciate that, Scott.
I forgot one thing, and I had a note here, so I apologize. You know, my job is I got to play like a little bit of a game of chess here in terms of expenses. So I have heard from some people, well, what are we doing about, you know, out of district special ed placements? Are we still continuing to pay? Well, if they are still providing services. So even though they're not going to a school that is an hour north of here, they are still providing services to those students. So we're continuing to pay that. I have had questions about transportation. And what are we doing about the transportation side because the buses aren't running? There's a couple of different things there. We're continuing to work with our transportation provider, Goffstown Truck Center. The school district for regular ed has been with them for decades. So it's a relationship that's been going on for a real long time. And there's a couple of things. As part of the CARES Act, there is a stipulation in there that we should try to maintain our contracts as best that we can, and we have done that. So right now we're seeing a credit on fuel, and I'm negotiating with them as well for additional credits because now that school will no longer be going forward for the rest of the year. But I have to be really super careful, and the school board has understood this to be true. There are not that many transportation providers that are local here. We cannot have Goffstown Truck Center go out of business. We cannot have other people take different jobs or bus drivers not be available so that when school starts up in September, we don't have a company that can transport our kids. So I'm working with, I meet with all of the other business administrators in the area. We're having discussions with the transportation provider. And I just want to let you know, it's not like we could just turn the spigot off and not pay them. We have to be mindful of the long game. This is the company that we're going to need to transport our kids this coming September and September after that. I will work to try to get credits where we can get those credits, but I can't be short-sighted and just not pay them anything. So I just wanted you to know that's my position. That's the board's position. They've been super supportive of that. And we are one community. These folks that work for the transportation company, many of them are local residents. Our bus drivers, many of them are local residents. So we're trying to do the right thing. There's also nuances in the CARES Act in terms of what's available for small businesses, what's available for unemployment, and we're working through all those different things. I just want to let you know that it's complicated, and I live it every day. Danielle is living it every single day in terms of what we're up against, in terms of what we have to do for payroll, et cetera. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to explain it.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott.
Cole?
Yep.
This is Selectman Lemay. I have a question for Scott, if that's okay for you.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, you mentioned fuel. Are we going to, in the next couple of months, redo our contract for fuel? Because I know the fuel has dropped drastically, and I know we could make some significant savings there. I'm just wondering if you've had any outreach to anybody regarding our fuel, the consumption and the purchasing of the fuel.
Yes, I have. So I have had a conversation with Derek a week ago, Derek, and the Goffstown School Board just authorized. I forgot to call you, Derek. I'm sorry. So you put me on the spot, Mark.
Sorry.
So last night, the Goffstown School Board authorized me to waive our ordinary bid process for oil, which is what we do, Mark, in August. But right now is the time to buy. So I did reach out to our oil supplier, which is Dead River, and I'm waiting to hear back from him any day now on a rate. So the last that we spoke, it was $1.84. I know it's gone down since then. So with that, I'll be working with Derek so that we can take advantage of that lower price for oil. With regard to propane, we were already locked into a very favorable rate, which was $1.16 a gallon. And for the school district, we predominantly use propane. On the Derek has been communicating with me on oil and I'm sorry, on diesel and fuel oil, et cetera. And we're in touch with each other, Mark. So I hope to do something within the week on that one while the prices are really low.
Great. Thank you very much, Scott.
Yep.
You have suppliers. Could you reach out? Or are you locked into that supplier as well?
We're rather than going out to bid now, the authorization that I have from my board is that we've been with Dead River for a long time. They're very reliable in terms of delivery. So we're gonna, for the last, I'd say 3 or 4, I think it's for the last 5 years, they've been the low bid anyway, or within a penny of being the low bid. So they've pretty much given us the best price, Fred. So rather than shop it, and then have the risk of having another provider. For this year, we're just gonna stick with Dead River.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to the town side of things, Derek or Selectman Lemay, would you like to give the board just an update on some stuff that's been going on the town side?
Thank you, Cole. I've also got, in addition to Selectman Lemay, Danielle Basora, our Finance Director and Treasurer, is on the call as well and can answer any questions the Budget Committee may have. The town is in a little bit different position than the school because the school works on a fiscal year. They are currently finishing up their fiscal year 20, whereas when the town goes to town meeting, we're getting that appropriation 3 months into the year. So on March, was it 10th, we went to town meeting and got our appropriation, and then COVID-19 happened right as that was finishing up. So what we've been doing is tracking additional expenditures, but also revenues. And right now, we've only got about 2 weeks of March to share with you. But if you look into the expenditure budget reports that went out, you will notice that fire OT, fire overtime, is up a little bit as they cover those shifts. Our IT, you will see this once we get out our April expenditure reports. We spent real quick right after town meeting and they started arriving. We started purchasing all of our hardware, our laptops, to the tune of almost $35,000. This was, again, all budgeted items as we go through our cyclical replacement schedule, but we went on it a little bit faster than we normally do. The day after town meeting, I just said, we talked with the IT department, said order as much as you can. And what that has allowed us to do is it's allowed departments to start sending staff and having them work remotely. Here at Town Hall, we're on a every other week rotation. We have one team that's in the office for a full week while the other team works remotely, still working with residents and developers, answering emails, answering phone calls. And then the following week, they flip-flop. So that's kind of how we're working. We had also some additional utility costs, the tune about $3,000. This was to get up to increase bandwidth to support those remote workers, to purchase WebEx license so we can host town meetings using a secure platform, as well as improving some of our phone plans. We do a voice over internet protocol system here, but this also allows more lines in town to be answered remotely. So we have the ability for those employees that are working remotely to answer it from their home office, just like they were sitting in Town Hall. We've also had some additional costs for the Emergency Operations Center. The Emergency Operation Management Group did authorize a one-time purchase of a pallet of MREs. Again, this was a shelf-stable item that the group felt was necessary to get in case there was any food supply issues that would impact our first responders. Again, this wouldn't necessarily be for the community, but it is to ensure that our first responders can continue to respond. But so far, we haven't seen a huge increase on our expenditures. It's really, a lot of it's been moving some items around. And what we'll see, the one thing that we have done is departments have not gone ahead with any of their CIP purchases for vehicles as of yet. Not gone out for our DPW vehicles or our police vehicles. I know they are gathering pricing and some may be moving forward with that, but we've kind of held back on that, as well as delayed the hiring of seasonal workers, lifeguards, summer camp counselors, and some of those seasonal help at DPW. So we've kind of held back on that as department heads. But that's really it on expenditures. The other end of it that we continuously watch are the revenues. Our revenue stream is really made up of three primary sources. About 50% of our revenue that goes to the general fund comes from motor vehicle registrations. We budgeted $3.2 million in 2020. In March, we saw about a 6% reduction from the March of the prior year. And right now, we're forecasting anywhere between a 10% and a 20% reduction in April, again, from the same period from the prior year. Not sure how to read this or how to project this out through the long for the entire year, simply because the governor has issued emergency orders that extended temporary plates for new vehicle registrations. And we're also doing all of our motor vehicle registrations online or remotely with residents. So we are, Kathy's doing a fantastic job with her staff there to answer people's questions and help them through that process. But again, when you have a weekly rotation where you have some staff working outside the building and some in, it does impact how quickly those registrations can get done. That being said, motor vehicles being 50% of our revenue stream, we budget that extremely conservatively every year. This year, we budgeted, again, $3.2 million coming in. Last year, our actuals were $3.37 million. So last year, our actuals, so even if we took about a 10% reduction off of last year's revenue, in that case, we still could make up for it. So that's half of our revenues. About a quarter of our revenues come from different department fees, interest on existing investments as we hold on to those funds. Again, we will see as we have to work with the school district over the summer for cash flow once the tax bills go out, and we will see how those interest gets impacted there. And the last quarter of our fees, or I guess our annual revenue, comes from the state. So, as I have three Goffstown representatives here, that Meals and Rooms, the highway block grant, and the municipal aid that was built into the biennial budget, that's about a quarter of our revenues that we depend upon. And if they don't come from the state, through whether it be through funds like the CARES Act or some other funding mechanism, that would have to be made up through property tax revenue by Goffstown residents. So, we are watching closely what the governor's office does with that CARES Act money. Again, that's $1.25 billion to the state of New Hampshire that they're trying to figure out how that's going to be dispersed. The other funding that we have available to us, Danielle and the fire chief and also the emergency management director, Brian Allard, did a great job over the last 2 weeks, and they have submitted our first reimbursement under the U.S. Department of Justice Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program to the tune of requesting $150,000 reimbursement for personnel and supply costs related to COVID. So we will continue to put those requests in as those funds remain available. We also anticipate that FEMA will be, we're going to be getting direction, we've been told this week and next week, on submitting for FEMA reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. And we're told that those virtual applicant briefings will be coming up here pretty soon. So any additional costs we'll have to do. So right now, we haven't seen a significant increase on the expenses, and we haven't seen a significant impact on the revenues, but it is something that will depend on how long the stay-at-home order remains in place, and if there are any other changes to those municipal deadlines related to motor vehicles or anything else. But I'd be happy to answer any questions any of the committee members might have.
All right. Seeing no questions. Great. All right. Thank you very much, Derek.
Nicole, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I'd like to echo what Scott said before. We are in constant contact with the school, whether it be Scott or Superintendent Balke. I have a weekly call with him as well as our partners in Goffstown and New Boston. We are working together to make sure that we are efficiently using the funds that are available to us and the tools that each of us have, and we'll continue that. And I know Danielle will be working with the school as we get into watching our cash flow over in May, June, and July to keep us moving forward.
Great. Thank you.
I would like to say, Fred Platt, that both school and town, you're going through unprecedented times. You're doing the best you can. Thank you.
Well said, Fred. Quickly, CIP appointment. I don't see that on the agenda that went out. But if anyone is interested in serving on the CIP committee, the budget committee does have a representative that usually meets in the summer. I think Eileen did it this past year.
When do they meet?
I'm sorry, Fred?
When do they meet? I love CIP committee, been on it for years, but I'm also Lions Sight and Hearing Treasurer. It meets on a Thursday night.
So to answer that question, typically CIP does meet on a Thursday night as they are a subcommittee of the planning board, and they have traditionally dovetailed in with the second and fourth meeting of the planning board. I anticipate the start of the CIP process may be delayed a bit this year because of some of the complexities that we have. But I would say as a subcommittee of the planning board, I would anticipate them to continue meeting on Thursday evenings on the first and third Thursday of each month.
And I'd be able to make the first, but not the third. So maybe somebody else could do it.
All right. So if you're interested and you want some more information, just email me after the meeting, and then we'll figure out who will end up serving for the budget committee there. Eileen, I also have down here that you want to make a quick announcement.
I did. I actually had a quick appeal. The Historic District Commission is putting together a cookbook as part of our fundraising effort. And I'm going to ask Catherine if she can send out the information, but I feel like I've got a lot of echo. I don't know if you guys are hearing that.
If you can, Eileen, can you mute your computer speakers?
I thought I had.
Should be on the screen below.
All right. This isn't my regular computer, so this is a little weird for me. Is that better?
That is, yes.
Okay. Now I can't hear you, but that's okay. So I just wanted to make an appeal that, well, we've got some time and a lot of us are unfortunately sitting home looking for a collection of recipes that we can put into a town cookbook. And I wanted to try and get in front of as many of the town committees as I possibly could to see if we could get your participation. I've already graciously gotten some from Mr. LeMay there, so I've got some there. And I send out some things on Facebook, so I've gotten some things from residents. But if you have anything, or if you'd like, recipes can be sent to goffstownrecipes@gmail.com. And if it's all right, Derek, I'm going to ask Catherine to just send out that page.
I think that would be fine.
Okay. That was my 2-minute thing.
Terrific. Thank you. I see nothing else on our agenda. Derek, is there anything else that we need to look at here?
No, again, we can continue to accommodate. If you want to do regular meetings, we can continue to accommodate through the WebEx platform. We're starting to get used to it, but I'll leave that up to the chairman.
Yep. I think as more health precautions and guidance comes out from the governor's office, we'll keep posted on that and make our decisions based on those recommendations. So we'll be sticking here for the meantime, but hopefully we'll all be able to gather in person sooner rather than later.
You want to schedule a meeting? This is Fred again. And it for live, but if it can't be live, it'll be this mechanism.
Yeah. There's just a lot. I wouldn't schedule a meeting just a second, just because there's a lot of other stuff with GTV covering, town departments having stuff. So I'll work with Catherine and Derek on setting up our next meeting, whenever that may be.
Thank you.
No, great. So without any further ado, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Cole, I have one quick comment. Selectman
Yes.
Lemay, I would like to say thank you to the members this evening for trying WebEx. I know it's quite a change for everybody, but I like this format, and hopefully tonight we have learned a valuable lesson. This is a great tool for us. Let's continue to use it, and hopefully it'll work out for us. Once again, thank you to the entire committee for stepping forward tonight and making this a better place. Thank you.
No, I thought this was terrific. Appreciated being able to see Scott's screen and stuff like that. So was a big fan of our meeting here tonight and the smoothness of it. So that's all I got.
To adjourn, Cole.
Great. Motion from Richard Manto,
Second.
second from Jeff. Motion to adjourn. On the table.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll have to go through a roll call really quickly here. Skylar, Skylar on the motion to adjourn.
He may have left already, Cole.
All right. Bill Cordes,
Yeah.
Greg,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Eileen,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Fred.
Yes.
I vote in favor. Richard Manzo,
Yes.
Selectman Lemay,
Yes.
Richard Fletcher, all right, not sure if he's still there. Jared Talbot,
Yes.
all right. Skylar, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes. Thanks, Cole.
Do you vote yes on the motion to adjourn? All right.
Good night, all.
Yeah, we're unanimous. All right. Thank you.